Hey guys, we are in Paris for the Tennis French Open in Roland Garros, and today I'm very happy to interview Roma Rosenberg, which the boss of the Professional Tennis Players Association, the PTPA. Hi, Roma.
Hello, hi David. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So this guy has kind of a secret job. He very rarely talks to the media. So it's really interesting to talk to him today, and I'm very happy that he's going to answer the questions for us. So, Romain, can you please explain us what is the Professional Tennis Players Association, how and when it was created, what is your mission, everything?
Sure. Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. Very excited to be talking about the PTPA. So, Professional Tennis Players Association, it is a player association, the closest thing of a union that we can have in tennis. Obviously, tennis players are not employees, they're independent contractors. So the equivalent of a union is a players association. It was founded by Novak Djokovic and Vasek Pospisil, two active players, and one of them being, one of the greatest players who ever played the game. They created the association in 2020, right around COVID. The goal behind it was that both Vasek and Novak sat on the player council for a number of years and somewhat grew frustrated of the process and the fact that they believed that the players' voice was not really heard. In a sense, players were always consulted about big decisions, but every time they decided or thought it would be better to go one direction, it was always the other direction that was chosen, and oftentimes to favor the tour or the tournaments, right? And so from
Because until 2020 and the creation of the PTPA, tennis was the only big sport in the world in which the players didn't have a union, right?
Correct. It's one of the major sport without a union. We are a little unique in the sense, like I said, it's not properly a union, but we represent both men and women, which is somewhat unique. But if we compare, for instance, to golf, which is probably the most similar sport to tennis, they have a player council, a player advisory council, but actually that council speaks directly with the tours of the boss of the tours and really make the big decisions in the sport. In tennis, it's not that way. They're just consulted in a way, but really never have a proper say in the big decisions in the sport.
All right. So what are your missions today? What are the difficulties you're facing in those missions? How does it work with the players? How do you listen to what they have to say and then try to represent their voice when you go and talk to the ATP, right? Which is ATP and WTA are your main interlocutors, right? Mm-hmm. Please explain us how it works and what your missions are.
Yeah, so I think, at the high level, there's really two big buckets of activities. The first one is really player support. So we have a number of services. Players are, as I said, independent contractors. They have a team, but their revenues are very dependent on their, results on court. So they're under a lot of stress, and anything we can do to alleviate the stress, anywhere from, wherever they are in the world. We have a sports psychologist who works, on mental health when players we have pro bono legal help. A lot of players come to us with some issues with, the ITIA, whether it's anti-doping, anti-corruption. And oftentimes, they're being charged with something or suspicion of something, and they don't even have the means to get legal representation. So they come to us, and depending on the case and whenever we can, we provide literally pro bono, so free help for the players. And we try to help, like I said, hotel deals, and players get, free access to airport lounges. It might seem, silly and stupid, but when you travel as much as they do, and between flights, if you can actually get some free lunch and rest in a lounge.
PTPA offers that?
Yes.
To the players?
Yes. We have about 300 free, it's called Priority Pass. It's something, the deal that we did with them. with the company, and 300 players have a pass for free to go. It's actually the most oversubscribed service that we have. I think we have more than 500 requests for it.
But all the players are very frequent flyers. Don't they have access to the lounges anyway?
It's interesting because first of all, some of them actually don't do that. They don't necessarily have. They understand that they can, use their. Well, some of them don't even have a credit card, so it's only a debit card. Some of them don't even necessarily have frequent flyers. You could also remember on the lower ranks of the tour, if you go to Challenger and even sometimes Futures event, you're in small cities. It's not the big airlines that fly there, so you don't necessarily have the same, miles and perks. And so it is something that they need and they want. So we're happy to provide. So that's really the first really kind of big bucket of activities. And then the second one is really around what we call kind of advocacy. So really speaking to the different governing bodies on behalf of the players and try to, change some of the rules and some of the pieces of the system that we believe are broken.
Right. And that's the heart of your mission, right?
That's really the heart of it. And it's the hardest part of the mission, bringing some services to the players requires some work, but at least we're in control and we can really deliver on that. Yeah. The advocacy piece, unfortunately, we're not in control. The only thing we can do is advocate and hope for people to hear us. Like you said, the WTA and ATP and the slams.
So what are the changes that you're trying to we do this which
enforce changing, we're trying to
enforce
what?
So what are the changes you're trying to enforce on the tour? What are the players asking for? What changes are they asking for?
Yeah, so I think it's really three main themes really. The first one is increase in compensation money wise. Obviously top players are doing very well financially. Arguably, you could also say if you compare to other major sports, it's still lower. So there's an argument to say that top players could already be making a little bit more money. But more importantly, it's really bringing the bottom of the pyramid and lifting everybody up. There's, depending on how you look at it, but probably around 200 players on the men's side, on the women's side, who can really actually live of being professional tennis players. Thinking of how popular tennis is globally, it's pretty crazy to think that only 400 players can actually be professional in the sense that they can actually make ends meet at the end of the year. So it's really more money for the players. We should say that tennis players earn about 17% of the total revenue generating in the sport. Most American sports, for instance, it's collectively bargained, but it's 50%, right? 50% in European football is closer to 60%. So there's not enough going to the players. So by extension, players don't make enough to actually sustain a living. So this is really the main big activity. The second being request.
So the PTPA works for all the players, the top ones and the lowest ones. But would you say that the ones that need the most your services and that require your services the most are not the top ones, right?
Yes, correct. And that's the challenge in tennis in general. Change will only come if the top players voice their concerns.
Yeah.
But they are not the one who actually are, really needing the change.
The top players are the voice of the low.
That's right. And so, we saw it recently about the conversation with, the slams about increasing the percentage of revenue, up to from 17% or whatever the number is to 22%.
Sabalenka talked about it.
Yannick Sinner talked about it. And so it is great that they're voicing their concerns and they want to be heard. But if they didn't do it, it would, we wouldn't talk about it at all. But our point of view is, there's a lot of players that actually don't play the slams that also need more money. So the conversation, it's good that it's starting at the slam level, but it should be more of an holistic conversation where how do we bring everybody up, including those who don't play the slams, around 300 in the world and upwards, right? So that's really the more money. There's obviously having a real independent voice. We are that voice, but today we don't really have a seat at the table, legally speaking. We can, put pressure and do things like that, but we are not yet officially representing the players in those conversations. So that's something that the players want, whether it's the PTPA or a future players union. It's not the point. It's players need that independent representation. And the last piece is really important as well, which is really a reform of the tour and the calendar. Today, players just play too much. Fans don't even really understand what the season really mean and why the top players are playing at the same time in different tournaments and how the point system works and everything. So it's really a restructuring of the kind of the product, and really that includes resting period, a real off season where players can build, recover, build their body again. We see more and more young players, Arthur Fils, Alcaraz, obviously, Berrettini. These guys are young and then getting, bad injuries. There is a reason for this.
And all the players agree on that, right?
100%. So, this is something that, and you were asking about challenges. The challenge is really players agree about the problems. They don't necessarily agree about the way to enforce the change. And also it's really difficult to kind of mobilize them all together at the same time around the same issues. And quite frankly, this is the PTPA's view, but we think that the people who are benefiting from the current system are taking advantage of the fact that players are not really organized, right?
So, so most of the discussions you have to try to make those changes and make the calendar lighter and increase the prize money for the players, all the things you're working on are discussions you're having mainly with the ATP and the WTA, right?
And also the slams. So it's all the stakeholders. I think we should address the elephant in the room. The lawsuit, antitrust lawsuit that we brought at the U.S. federal court in New York last year.
Yes, please tell us about this lawsuit. Why did you do it? What for, and how it's going at the moment?
Yes. So listen, the what for is really the three things we talked about, right? Player representation, reform of the calendar, and more money for the players. Those are the goals of the lawsuit.
And you had to do a lawsuit because you had the feeling that your voice, the player's voice, was not heard well enough by your interlocutors, the ATP and the WTA.
Correct.
You feel like they don't really want to do the changes that you're trying to obtain. Yes. So this is why you made a lawsuit?
Yes, exactly. We've been involved in conversations with the stakeholders for 3-4 years. We always knew that a lawsuit was a possibility, but we really wanted to go
try to avoid it.
Yeah, exactly. Try to avoid it. We've had numerous conversations with the leaders at the ATP, the WTA, all the slams. But we, as you said, we really felt like those conversations were not really moving forward. There was, interestingly, I think it's fair to say that pretty much everybody in tennis recognizes that the problems are there. The fragmentation of the sport, the governance today is really hindering the growth of the sport. But the problem,
the ATP and WTA also think that?
They do.
Yeah,
they do.
Right.
But the problem is fragmentation. In order to solve this, well, you got to aggregate, and if you aggregate, that means that some people are losing, what they have today, whether it's power, whether it's how much money they're making today. So by definition, if the current system works for you, there's no real reason why you would change. And so we thought, unfortunately, the only way to really force the change was a lawsuit. And the way this is really just a lever to have someone, a federal judge looking at it and saying on the face of it, yes, the system is illegal for the most part, which we think it is, because it's basically, a number of governing bodies agreeing together on how the system should work and really compressing the revenue that the players are allowed to make. I'll give you an example. A few years ago, Larry Ellison, who owns Indian Wells, wanted to increase the prize money. He said, listen, my tournament is great. It's making money. I don't need the money. I want my tournament to be bigger, and I want players to get more money. and the ATP told him, sorry, you cannot increase the prize money. This is against the rule of the prize money equation formula that we have, which we think in itself is illegal. It's price fixing in nature, and we think the system is rigged against the players. So the only way to force the change was a lawsuit, and hopefully this leads to more conversation and to a settlement. Honestly, we don't want to go all the way to actual jury trial, and then 5 years from now the goal is to really get to an agreement and a settlement with everyone around the table.
Yeah, it's quite crazy to to hear that the truth, sadly, is probably that the ATP is not really doing its best for the well-being of the players, right?
No, I mean, so we talk about the governance, but at the top of the ATP, who makes the decision? It's the board. At the board, you have 8 people, 4 representatives of tournaments and 4 representatives of players. Not players themselves, I should add. Representative of players, right? So this is very different. So everything happens in that room, and you can imagine what a big decision happens when tournaments are bringing the money. They are smart business people. When there's conflict in terms of a decision, oftentimes the money takes the side of the tournaments, and players are left behind.
And how are choosing the representative of the players?
It's a long process, but it's basically the player council votes for them, but there's a short list that's people can just run and present their candidacy. Oftentimes they're kind of vetted by the ATP, and the process is depending on who and I've heard people who ran for that role last year who complained that the system was kind of rigged, and they had no chance of being elected because they didn't know the players, or they were not allowed to talk to the players before the vote, and so the person who was already in place had a massive advantage.
So do you consider that those people representing the players at the ATP board don't really truly faithfully represent the general players' desires?
It's obviously hard to prove, but it is an opinion that at least the model is not working really well. You can see from the frustration from the players that obviously if they feel like their voice is not being heard, that means that at some point in the governance something is broken. So we believe there's somewhat of a conversation between the board player representative and the player advisory council, between those two, but again, it's in the name. It's only advisory, so they have no power to vote and to really influence the decisions.
Okay, and about the lawsuit. So you just told us about the lawsuit. Can you tell us what's the situation today with that lawsuit? As far as I know, I think you already came to an agreement with the Australian Open.
Correct. Yes. So
what did they accept to change?
So they accept basically the settlement. So where we are right now, say everybody except Tennis Australia now, but everybody is in the lawsuit. So brought in the U.S. Southern District of New York Federal Court against the ATP, the WTA, and the 4 Grand Slams originally. And we are at a place where when you sue someone, obviously they file something we call motions to dismiss, which is basically their view of why there shouldn't be a lawsuit. So the judge is currently reviewing that. We hope we get an answer pretty soon. And when that happens, then that means the lawsuit really starts. Tennis Australia is effectively out of the lawsuit now because they settled with us. So we found an agreement. So
what did you get from them?
So we got 2 things. The first one, we got a confirmation that there is really a problem in tennis, because for someone to settle, that means they have to recognize that the merits of the lawsuit. Right? You don't settle if something is sure to die. So it was acknowledgement that there is merits in the claims that we brought. And 2, what they're providing for us at this stage is really kind of full cooperation in the process. So sharing information about how tennis works, some of the conversation with the other defendants. And providing what we call, evidence in the process. Obviously, because they were the first ones. It was still early in the process, so it was difficult to have something very tangible. Also, Tennis Australia alone cannot really change the whole system. Right. So for now, and they were already increasing the prize money that year quite heftily. So we didn't feel like this was really something we should really push on. But for the future, hopefully, parties that settle will get more out of that for sure.
Right, and most of the tournament directors are ex-players.
Yeah.
So does that mean they really understand the problem and they agree there is a problem and they want to make the work conditions of the players better, or not necessarily? They're more like opponents to you?
Well, it's an interesting question, actually. What we kind of witness is that, the minute tournament directors become, the players become tournament directors, they go to the business side of things and they tend to forget a little bit where they came from. Obviously, they want to have a great tournament, they want to have a great event, and that obviously is through making players happy. But funny enough, it's not rare to hear a former player say, well, back in my days, we didn't have this, or players already make so much more money today, they should be happy playing tennis for more money, which is not really the point. The point is sports is a growing industry. All players in every sports are making a lot more money than they were 20 years ago. But the problem is tennis is lagging behind all the other sports. So it is an interesting question and an interesting dynamic. I think some of the players that are involved with the PTPA, our ambassadors, Marcos Bagdatis, Nicola Penti, former players, former top 10 players, they understand that the voice of the players matters very much, and they're ready to kind of commit to the change. But as soon as you're on the commercial side, on the tournament side, they tend to forget a little bit where they come from.
Right. And just a couple of more questions before we end this passionate, very interesting interview.
Sorry, it's very legal and
no, it's very interesting. Is there any concern about the ecological impact of the tour? Because most players, especially like the ones in the top 100, travel all the time. They fly almost every week from one country to another, from one continent to another. So today the environmental question is crucial. Mm-hmm. Is there any concern from the players about this? To you, the PTPA try to reorganize the tour, or would like a reorganization of the tour to make less travel for the players, like organize the tour in a way that that one tournament after the other are close by and implies less travel?
Yes, absolutely. So this is a very interesting question and a very interesting topic. Obviously, a lot of players actually care about this a lot. I know Sasha Zverev, for instance, he does his own carbon footprint offset. So he pays, his carbon credits based on the travel he does, which I think is fantastic.
But he's the only one who does it, right?
I think it's just a few. I don't know if it's the only one, but it's fantastic. But I do think it's kind of ironic that I think the ATP actually released a travel tracker for the players, saying, this is the carbon footprint and everything, when really they are the ones imposing the schedule and the travel. So that's an interesting, a little bit ironic situation.
All the players should do what Sasha Zverev does. It should be like...
Yes, no, it's true.
They should have to do it,
Yes, or we should say that, maybe as you said, we should optimize the calendar, which I think, if you think about, and then we go back to the governance and the interest in tennis. The truth is today, if you told tournaments we need to move your date because there's a tournament close by and we can avoid the travel, tournaments will say, I'm sorry, I like my date, I like the week. Right. My sponsors are used to that week. If I change, I'm going to lose money. Sorry, can't do. And that's the difficulties to change anything in tennis. But yes, at the we were talking about the outcome of the lawsuits. We think we should repackage and restructure the tennis product and the structure. In which case, we could really start from a blank page and start being very mindful about what tournaments are where and when, and avoid travel. I also think that the lower ranks, smaller tournaments, they shouldn't be international. You should have local, regional mini tours, right? There's no reason when you play a future tournament for literally $200 to travel from Turkey to Rome to then go to South America for one half of an ATP point and $200. So, you could really optimize that at the regional level, and then elevate the best players into the main tour, which I think will remain global in nature, but could be better organized.
All right. Last question. In quite a few major sports, we've seen in the past strikes from the players.
Yeah.
Because the changes they wanted were not happening, and so they went on strike. Any chance that could happen in tennis, you think?
Well, so I think we should note a very important distinction is that in those sports where strikes happen, those athletes are employees, right? And so striking when you're an employee versus an independent contractor is legally happens very differently. Say differently, players could face some repercussions as independent contractors. Right. Two, the main difference is in tennis, you really need, in order for a strike to work, or a boycott, the way we say in tennis, for it to work, you really need all the players to boycott. Right. And the minute you have one player that doesn't do it, then all of a sudden you have two, and then three, and then everybody's back in it. And so we think that the threat of a boycott is real and is true. I don't believe that an actual boycott will ever happen. And quite frankly, going back to the reason for the lawsuits, truthfully, the only two levers for change are either legal or a boycott, right. And the boycott will never really happen. So we only just left with a lawsuit for real change.
Okay, so it looks like the PTPA is facing a long and difficult battle. Let's be optimistic and hope, like the song, that a change is going to come.
I hope so. I like that song.
I love it too. All right, Romain, thank you very much for talking to Essentially Sports. It was a pleasure talking to you. And I wish you good luck in this fight you're leading, that I personally support 100%.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Hopefully I can help you someday in this battle.
Always. Right. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you.